cloud somewhere. There we go.
Okay. So first of all, I'd like to thank Capstone for allowing us by sponsoring this webinar and Zoom account that we can do these webinars. We're very grateful for them. And I would like now to hand over to Anna Collins, who's going to talk all things endurance. So
I am. Thank you very much, Robin. Thank you. And thank you for asking me to do this. I think the number of RORs participating in endurance we've seen grow over the last few years, but there's probably a lot of myths around endurance riding and competing in particular that I'd like to bust and give you some information about where to start and why it's brilliant for former racehorses to go endurancing, a new verb that we've invented. So my name's Anna. I'm the sort of unofficial endurance series coordinator between retraining of racehorses and our FEI governing body, which is Endurance GB. So I work in the employment of neither, but I'm answerable to both in the interest of trying to get more people to participate in the sport that I absolutely love. So that's what I'm going to talk about this evening. I'm going to attempt to move my slides forward. On here should be a video in a minute linking to YouTube. If it doesn't work, because it might not, it will be in the link in the slides that you'll get afterwards to look at your leisure. So we'll see. We'll give it a go. Come on, come on. Oh look, it might work. No, it's not going to. Oh, it is. Right, quick video. Just to get you in the mood. Get your popcorn. Slowly. Oh man. We'll try this. If not, you can watch it later. So just to whet your appetite, I don't know what the quality was like for you there, but it wasn't great for me. But hopefully you'll get the gist about endurance, which is what I'm going to talk about. So, first of all, what I hear quite often from people about when they're talking about endurance or I'm talking about it is basically it's dead fast and my ROR's head will blow up if I get them in an open space with people galloping around and they get the feet back on the turf. They just won't be able to cope. So just to address that, first of all, it's not first past the post. So endurance is all about fitness of your horse and yourself, and really about challenging different terrain and different distances, and it's all about the welfare of the horse. So we don't gallop about. It's not the fastest that wins, and actually it's more controlled and it's about making your horse work efficiently and train to the right level of fitness before you start. I'll talk about other things like we don't gallop about, we don't ride in groups, we don't do all that stuff that will blow your horse's head up. In fact, most of it is on really lovely forest tracks or bridleways or paths. Occasionally we go across an open field, Sometimes, yes, we do. We might use a bit of a point-to-point course, or we might start from a race course. Yes, your horse's head might blow up, so choose your rides. Think about where you're going to go. If you think your horse's head will blow up, then stick to those rides. And they're all described, little descriptions about the rides. Go for those that are easiest. You'll be riding in a pair, or at most a three. So start at the beginning. So you're competing really against your own level of training and fitness. So you can ride along with a bestie, with a buddy, um, have a chat, negotiate the map, think about your speed and your distance and your time and what your kids are doing and what you did at work this week, and catch up with all sorts of gossip. And then at the end, it's your horse's fitness and how you help it to recover from that ride, which determines the points that you are given. So I can ride along with my best mate, and at the end, I can beat her because my horse's heart rate comes down faster. This all sounds a bit mystical at the moment. I'll get to that in a minute. But that's why it's a really, really sociable sport, because you can meet friends for life. It's really, really like a family of people that look after one another, because the same people go to the same rides all around the country. Sometimes we camp overnight, we have a sing song, we have a fire pit, and it really is very sociable. For me, though, the main reason that I like endurance is that at whatever level you ride or compete, I'll talk in a minute about how you can ride but not necessarily compete. It creates an amazing bond with your horse because you can be with it all day. You are really understanding how it's feeling, how it's moving, how it's riding, whether it's fit, whether it's stressed, how it moves on different uphills, downhills, through all the gates. It's brilliant. It's brilliant building relationships with your horse as well as mates that you see out there. So, thoroughbreds. You'd think, oh, endurance, isn't that about Arabs? Don't you need an Arab to do endurance? Well, Arabs are pretty good at it, and so are native breeds. Thoroughbreds are actually brilliant at endurance for many, many reasons. You see the photograph there on the right is me riding on the beach um, at the Wirral with a young para rider, actually, Alfie, on his tiny, tiny, about 11 hand pony. And we were there doing a 40-kilometre ride together. I was his escort. He's autistic, ADHD, and some other physical complications. But together we got around a 40-kilometre ride, and it was a brilliant day out. So whatever type of horse you've got, endurance is okay. Thoroughbreds in particular, though, as well as Arabs, tend to be at the top of the tree. They've got bags of stamina, especially the national hunt horses who are trained for a longer trip. And really, they they go through some endurance when they're doing a 3.5 mile over those national hunt fences. Doesn't mean flat racers aren't good at it too. I know many of former flat race horses that are really good at endurance. Physically, they've got big hearts, big lungs, big spleen, loads of blood, loads of oxygen circulating. And when they're fit, all of those big organs, you've seen the really deep chest on a thoroughbred and know what's going on inside there, means that they are more efficient at recovering from a long distance ride. They actually beat the Arabs hands down, haha, on that level. They're used to traveling long distances to an event. I travel because I compete at a high level all around the country with my former racehorses, and they do it no bother. I went down to South Wales the other week, 4.5 hour trip in the lorry. Didn't mind. He's used to it. That's what he did when he was a racehorse. They're also really used to the stuff that I think maybe some of the hairy cob riders struggle with. Our racehorses are used to trotting up for vet inspections when they are at the races on the day. They're really used to being regularly examined. Things like having the heart rate checked and standing still for a minute while that's done, that's normal to them. It's normal behaviour. And they're brought up from that very early age to understand things like being handled, being shod, having your shoes checked, having your shoes changed, just the general stuff, clipping, good manners, that routine that they get used to in a training yard translates really well to the process of going through an endurance ride, and I'll talk about that later. They'll have trained in a string. So when people say, you know, it's going to be loads of people all galloping about, but racehorses train in strings and ride out in pairs, normally with their work buddy. So an endurance ride where they set off in company with one or two or maybe three other horses, so you're in a four, that'll be the most. They're really used to it and they just think they're going out to do a bit of work. They they love as well the company of one another. I know quite a few people who have other types of pony, which can be quite nappy. I don't really see very often a nappy racehorse that says, I need to be with a friend. So they're just really good at it. Lots and lots of reasons why thoroughbreds are epic at endurance. Here's another myth. Going around in circles is boring. I know some people who say, I do endurance with my Arab because I can't stand going round and round a school. I get really grumpy with them because endurance is all about getting that good balanced rhythm for a long period of time. We work mainly in trot and canter to get to the right speeds. Again, I'll talk about that in a minute. But getting that balance, rhythm, and self carriage starts in a school. Regular schooling, regular suppleness, regular physiotherapy, regular groundwork, regular walking over raised poles, all of that stuff we find really, really important in endurance so that you can get that natural carriage and gait and that cadence of rhythm. That helps them to work efficiently. That makes them fitter. That means you recover quicker. That means you get more points. So the obedience as well that comes from schooling for the endurance horse, I say, a turn on the forehand, okay, in a school, that might be boring. You've got to do that to open a gate. A halt is when you want to check your map or have a drink or have a chew on a Mars bar or whatever it is. A leg yield. How many times do we have to go around pedestrians that don't quite want to move on a forest track? Rein back, maybe even turn around and go the other way if you're lost. But they'll love it, and with good schooling, with good fitness and stamina, perfect for endurancing. Next myth, sort of a myth. The rider has to be mega fit. You do have to be reasonably fit. It can be a very long day. I always say that by the time I've mucked out 3, got my lorry ready, got my horse ready, driven to the event, unpacked, got ready for later, signed in. By then, I'm knackered. I think, oh my God, I've got to go do the ride now. So it can be a long day, especially if you're traveling home the same day. Or you could just stick to rides that are close to you. You don't have to travel a long distance. That's just if you get a bit addicted to it. So you do have to be reasonably fit. So if you're doing a 3-hour ride of about 40 kilometers, that's about 3 hours of squat. If you do it at a trot, that's some going. And you do need core strength fitness. Lots of us do Pilates, equipilates. But we tend to post, we sort of stand in our stirrups, raised slightly, bit tipped forward, almost in a jockey position over the withers and shoulders so that the horse has got the freedom to move naturally in a balanced way without us sitting fat on the top. So posting like that is actually a lot less strenuous than doing full proper rising trot for 3 hours. I think that would kill me. So we tend to ride in a post position with quite long stirrups. You've also got to be able to run for the trot up or bribe somebody else to do it for you, so that you'll hear in a moment about the sort of vetting process that we go through before every ride. And we need to be able to run alongside our trotting thoroughbred for about 50 yards there and back. So rider fitness is important, and you need to manage your own nutrition and hydration as well during an endurance event. I see lots of people who are, covering the horses with water, giving them lots of drinks and maybe a bit of feed, and then they have for themselves, it's a banana and a cup of coffee. Doesn't quite cut the mustard, because you are also participating in that exertion and physical activity. Having said all that, I'll talk about the lower level rides in a moment. Anyone can do it. If you can hack for an hour and a half on a pleasure ride, just go and enjoy it. Anyone can do it. But we're really proud that Sam Whaley-Cohen joined us. The Grand National winner, 22, of course. I'm sure you all know that. At the Golden Horseshoe. He actually loves endurance riding and does it quite often with his sister. So if he can do it, anybody can do it. He's just a retired jockey now and a dentist, isn't he? Here's the next myth. You need special kit for endurance. No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't need any special kit. A nice, comfortable GP saddle or your usual saddle that you find most comfortable. My friend rides her Arab in her dressage saddle because she finds that most comfortable. And your usual tack and clobber is absolutely fine. I would say the only thing is make sure it's suitable for the weather. So it's probably more important to have your own correct equipment than it is to worry about what the horse is wearing. But there is special kit for endurance that I just wanted to talk to you about. I remember back in the day when I started 20, long time ago, years ago, everybody used to take the mickey out of us in our riding tights and trainers. Look at those weirdos. And now everybody's wearing riding tights, aren't they? Because they are more comfortable than old-fashioned jumpers or breeches, especially for long periods of time, and especially if they're soaking wet through. That doesn't have to be because of the rain. It can be because of our crewing points where we pour water over the horse. I'll talk about those in a bit. But we often end up pouring water all over ourselves as well. So soggy, old-fashioned cotton breeches, can you imagine? What we need is a bit of lycra. Riding tights are best. A lot of people ride in all-terrain boots and chaps. You might need to get off your horse sometimes and maybe do a little jog along if your horse isn't happy with, I don't know, crossing a river or a bridge. I actually ride in long boots. I've got skinny legs, chaps, half chaps, blooming chaff me to bits on the stirrup leathers. So you can see there a photo of me. I've got my long boots on. Fancy biothane bridles are really, really helpful in endurance. And again, they originate from the racing industry. This is kind of a plasticky, bendy stuff. It's really easy to wash and dry. You just dunk it in a bucket. It also means that when you're pouring water on your horse, or if it's raining, you haven't got wet leather, which can rub them over, especially if you're doing a 2 hour plus ride, leather's not great. And if you're doing a 2 day ride, you chuck it in a bucket after day one and it's lovely clean on day two. So biothane bridles are part of our standard endurance kit, I guess. Endurance saddle there, it would be remiss of me not to say this is the Wintex Endurance Pro because I'm their ambassador for the endurance saddle. But you can see how lovely and comfortable that looks. It's like an armchair, keeps my legs in the right place, lots of D-rings to attach things to, and there are other brands of endurance saddle available. Actually, you just need a GP saddle. Slosh bottles are the things that we use to pour cold water over our horses whilst mounted. So you have somebody, usually on a longer ride, stationed at certain points. We call them our crew. You can always tell endurance riders because we're the ones that stand in the um, in the, in the aisle of the supermarket looking at all of the fabric softener bottles, looking for the ones with the wide necks because you can fill them up and pour them out quicker over your horse. They're slosh bottles, that's what we call them. So special kit is a collection of old Lenore and other fabric conditioner bottles. Other stuff that's really important to take, I suppose whatever distance of ride, even if it's only a 10-mile ride, is fluid for your horse when it's finished and even en route at a crew point. So getting your horse to be hydrated, remain hydrated, is number one priority really, and what most of us are obsessed with. So a selection, a buffet bar of things like plain water brought from home because it's what they're used to, maybe with some apple juice or some apple cordial in. Some like soaked sugar beet. Some don't like speedy beet because it's not sugary enough. And I'm not mentioning the brand name, but Saracen's recovery mash. Saved everybody's lives when they invented it, because endurance horses, I think, survive on it. Some people use electrolytes. I would say unless you're riding over 100 kilometers, you wouldn't want to use electrolytes on your horse. Lots of people invest in a heart rate monitor. I'll talk about why in a minute. Or a bog standard stethoscope. I think you can get them from about 20 quid on Amazon, or mine's a fancy medical one, about 100 quid. Heart rate monitors. Not the kind that the horse wears, but the kind that you hold next to the horse's side. So that's kit. This is the kit that you might need before you get started. Actually, you don't. That's if you get addicted. So what we're actually looking to do to retrain a racehorse for endurance is to get them to ride in that the rhythm and cadence, get them to be obedient and travel over different terrain and natural obstacles that they might not be used to. So things like big muddy puddles they might not have seen at Godolphin's race yard. They may not have seen narrow bridleways with low-hanging branches. I remember the first time I rode my first mare. I thought she was retrained and ready to go. We were going down a narrow bridleway. Suddenly the trees got lower. And what did I do? Tipped forward in my saddle to put my head down to go under the branches. And she said, "Oh, that means gallop." And so we did, and popped out the end of the bridleway like a cork out of a bottle, and me thinking, there's more work to do here. I couldn't sit up, of course, because the branches were in the way. So I just had to hang around her neck and wait till she'd finished. It's good fun. Things like streams and fords, they won't be used to. They soon will. I got a new boy last year, and just a couple of months ago, he was wading through a river at a farm ride. In fact, it's where we do camp. So he's decided he loves water. And they love it. They love things like an exciting bridge that they've got to cross, or a galloping along a grass verge. I don't know why that sounds a bit daft, or cantering, but you can feel them grin. They love it. They tend to be a bit taller than your average endurance horse, and sometimes you might need to get off, maybe to open a gate. There's usually somebody there manning a gate. I think the most important thing about retraining a former racehorse, or understanding your former racehorse for endurance, is about knowing its heart rate. So what is its heart rate at rest, straight after exercise and half an hour after you've exercised? We get as obsessed with heart rates and stethoscopes and endurance as we do with how much water have they had on board. But just something maybe to practice at home anyway, just out of interest. If you don't know your horse's resting heart rate and what it's like after a schooling session, try it out. See how long it takes to recover back to that normal rate, resting rate, after you've worked. And I suppose the thing which thoroughbreds struggle with the most in endurance is their feet. They are not designed, built and engineered for long distances. As you know, they're built for speed over short distances. They tend to have thinner soles and maybe don't grow as much heel as certainly as much as the Arabs. Their feet are like concrete and very tall. They have very tall feet, Arabs. So thoroughbred's feet can be tricky to manage. One thing to do is pick your rides. Excuse me. Don't do the stony ones. Pick the ones with grass. And of course, as everybody does anyway, good farrier, good feed. You can use things like pads, remedial shoeing, all sorts of stuff. But actually the hardest thing with a thoroughbred and endurance is managing their feet. So this is all background stuff. I'll get onto the substantial bit of this evening now. So
Anna, I just wanted to just drop in and say, if anybody's got any questions, just drop them into the chat as well.
Oh, yes.
We will pick them up at the end and go through them all so everybody can answer. If you think of a question, just write them down to us and then we will answer. Well, I won't, Anna will. We'll answer them at the end.
Yes, please. If you ask it now, I might get to it later. Okay, what is it? What is endurance? That's what you've turned up tonight to find out about, isn't it? It was actually invented as a sport by Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum. And we know from Godolphin and Maidan, he knows his racehorses as well as his Arabs. But in Dubai, he built a massive endurance village that he calls his home for endurance competitions. And every year, as well as endurance competitions going on every year, there's an international competition that he hosts. I think there are 45 countries taking part this year. So the sport as it stands was invented by him. He's got a lovely place in Norfolk called Euston Park, which is a sort of replica of his Dubai Endurance Village, which is in the most amazing countryside to ride on. All the facilities are there permanently. So he started it, and then really the people from the UAE then also wrecked it with lots of really poor management, poor welfare of some of the horses that were competing. Only some, but they're the ones that hit the media, aren't they? By then, though, Endurance GB had started up, and it's one of the 16 FEI bodies, and with welfare absolutely at the heart of the sport. So Endurance GB is our regulatory body, if you like. And over the year, there's probably about 70 different events being held in our season, which is March to October. And those events are from 16-kilometre ride. I'm just trying to do the maths on the mileage. It's about 10 miles to 160 kilometres. And yes, that's in one day. So there's 23 different area groups within Endurance GB. And over those 23 groups, that's where the 70 events come from. So there's bound to be something local to you. If you have a look on the Endurance GB website for your local group, just out of interest, have a look and see what they're organising locally. That's the best thing to do, to have a look at what's on. Some of them are the big competitions, and they will host multi-day rides as well. So there's like a 3-day event that we have in Cirencester every summer with multi-day rides. So people might be doing 120 kilometres class, but they do 40 each day for 3 days. So Endurance GB really is your place to look for where all those events are happening. And if you're tempted to join Endurance GB, please make sure you tick that you are an RoR member, and then you'll be put into the group of people that I can communicate with, and also will scoop up everybody's results at the end of the year and see who's won stuff, which I'll talk about in a minute as well. There's 3 levels of membership with EGB, so you can start off at a really basic level and pay as you go. Pay per ride. If you do pay as you go, that also allows you to compete as part of what Endurance calls clubs, but I prefer to call teams, and that's where the RoR National Annual Teams Competition lives. So that's on a pay as you go basis, really cheap, really accessible compared to other disciplines in particular. Then we have a basic class of membership, £40 per ride, per annum, sorry, for rides up to 30 kilometres. And then the full membership also gives you public liability insurance, which is akin to your BHS insurance as well. So if you're not a member of BHS and you need insurance, it's included in full EGB membership. They will then allocate you to your local group and send you from head office a MasterCard and logbook to record all your distances. And also, to be eligible for prizes at the end of the year, you should register your horse with RoR to compete at £25 a year. So that's getting you started. Check your EGB group webpage. Your local group will also have a buddy system. They'll do their own webinars. They'll have training days. They'll have pleasure rides, lots and lots of pleasure rides, which start at 16 kilometres, as I said before, a 90-minute hack, which just means you can get out and meet people, go for a ride in a safe place, in places that you wouldn't normally be allowed to ride in because they're often by permission only for the event. And somebody else has done all the hard work. You just need to rock up and go for a hack. What's not to like? Um, if if what was I going to say then? If you enter a pleasure ride with your local group, but it's part of a bigger competitive ride, we call them GERs, graded endurance ride, which just means it's got competition classes on the same day. You'll have to have a farrier check and a vet trot up at the beginning, and at the end. But most local groups organise days or events which are just pleasure rides. So it's just their members going out. There's a marked route. People will be there on road crossings to open gates. There'll be there'll be a portaloo, oh bliss, and catering at the end. So, yeah, it's a real nice social day, and it's just a way of getting out and having a hack in somewhere where you couldn't ordinarily go to, and somebody's actually put arrows on the ground for you to follow. So it's a really social sport where everybody looks after one another. Pleasure rides are ace, really good for getting started. And you can stick to those forever if you want. Just do pleasure ride. I was actually a pleasure rider for about 10 years before I started with a former racehorse. Actually, I had a Welsh Arab before that who was my pleasure ride pony. Then I grew up, and then I got competitive, and then it got addictive. So beware. So just very quickly then, how it works, endurance riding. Before you get there, before you enter the ride, you will receive by email from the ride organizer instructions about how to get to the place where it's being held, what 3 words location. So the occurrence of people lost, can't find the venue is much less these days than when I started, and you got your printed out map on your knee. So how to get there, there will be a diagram of the venue. So even when you get there, you know where to park, where the loos are, where the secretary is, all of that stuff. You'll also get your bib number, which is what you'll see in the photographs I keep showing, which is really important that you have it on at all times through the whole process. And you'll have a time to vet. And this is the time that having arrived and got everything ready, talk about that in a minute, that's the time you should actually go and be in the queue, or in fact a little bit before, to go and have a vet check. Now don't forget, if you're pleasure riding and it's part of a competitive day, but it's a pleasure ride class, you'll still need to do the vet trot up to make sure it's sound. Welfare is absolutely at the heart of everything. So you've got all that stuff ready before you go, and you've got all your kit and equipment, which I talked about earlier, and you've remembered to put the horse in. When you arrive, tip number 1 is get everything ready around your trailer or horse box for when you get back. So your buckets of fluid for your horse, that menu bar I talked about before, buffet bar, get that all lined up ready for as soon as you hop off when you've finished. Slosh bottles, or however you're going to cool your horse down, get your rug out, do all of the stuff, get it ready because you'll need it as soon as you get back. Then go and check in with the steward. If you're competitive and you've got that MasterCard, hand that in to the steward. If you're a pleasure rider, you don't need to at this point. Maybe a notice board that says there's route changes or time allowances if you've got to open a gate rather than have somebody there. Health and safety notices, all that sort of stuff. Collect your bib number and your vet sheet. So this is the bit of paper you'll need to fill in before you present to the vet, and then go and see a farrier. Excuse me, got tickly throat, hay fever. Present to the farrier, who will check your shoes are on. Make sure you've got no risen clenches, no rough bits where the horse might cut a leg against another foot, that kind of thing. If you need any quick farriery, if that's a word, doing, they will often do it unless the queue's huge. So if they say this clench is risen, do you know? Would you like me to sort it out? Say yes, of course, before you go. It often kind of serves well to maybe have a £5 or a tenner in your pocket. If it's a refit, if it's a cold shoeing, which has been known by me often. So tenner in your pocket just to say thank you. yeah, they will do a bit of remedial work if you need it. So then you go and present to the vet, which is the bit where most of us who are competing feel a bit sick, because your horse's heart rate must be below 64 beats per minute to start. So learning how to manage your horse, keep it calm, maybe walk it round, know what it likes. Does it like a stroke? Does it not like a stroke? Does it want to be standing on its own in the queue or with its friend? All those sorts of things take into consideration. This is where you need to know what your horse's normal heart resting rate is. And maybe even before you go to vet, if you know you've got a horse that gets anxious, just check the heart rate and think, well, I'll just go and I'll give it another couple of minutes walking round, or I'll just let them have a little bit grass before I present to the vet. 64 is high though. So you will realise that your horse has to be pretty wound up for a heart rate over 64 or pretty unfit. Then we do a trot up for the vet, just like a vet examination if you're unfortunate enough to have to take them to the vet. So a good tip is a bridle with a bit in rather than a head collar, so you've got a bit more control. They have to be naked, so no boots, a nice long rope. So when your horse is trotting along beside you, the vet needs to be able to see it moving freely without you restricting its head. So if there's any sign of lameness, you get a head nod, the vet will also want to be able to see that. So a nice loose rope indicates you're not trying to cover that by sort of dragging them along beside you. Another tip is when you trot away from the vet, obviously, turn around a cone so the horse is on the inside, face to the vet. A nice slow walk around that corner. All sorts of funny problems can present themselves if you suddenly go handbrake turn. You could do all sorts of damage doing it that quickly. So nice slow turn at walk and then trot back. And it's normally about 50 yards. It's supposed to be 50 meters. It often depends on the venue and where they've managed to find somewhere. Sometimes it can be on hard ground. Sometimes it's on grass. Sometimes it's in a school. You do the trot ups. So your horse really does need to be sound or the any ailings will show up. So once you've passed your heart rate check and your vet check, and then you can breathe again and not feel quite so sick, tack up and go within 30 minutes of the vet time. When you go through the start gate, you'll be given a start time. So check it. And even pleasure riders as well, do it for fun. Do it as part of your day out. There is a minimum and a maximum time for every ride, even pleasure rides. So it's not first past the post, but it's also not too slow. Sometimes we get pleasure riders who decide to go for a pub lunch halfway around, and the poor volunteers who are at the venue are standing there at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, having been there since 6 in the morning, waiting for the pleasure riders to come back. So there is a minimum and maximum time. So check your start time so you know how long you've got. Follow the route. It's always marked with chalk arrows on the ground or maybe tapes hanging in trees. There's often signs up. And follow the map. So you always have a map. You also need to read and understand it before you go. There might be several routes marked on the same map. So the 16 kilometre, the 32, the 40, the 50, the 60 might use parts of the same route. You also need to know where you are on the map at any time. So although the route's marked, if you suddenly think you're not going the right way, and my gut normally tells me that I'm not going the right way, this doesn't feel right. If you know where you are, you know how to trace back your steps to go to the last marker that you saw, and then you might pick that up again off the map. That's really hard if you don't know where on the map you are. Top tip again, don't follow the riders in front because they may also be lost. I just followed them. We didn't know where we were going. How many times do you see that? If people stop and start having a debate with you about where you think you are, oh, that's horrible. That really messes your head up because you think you know where you are, and they think they know where you are, but they think you're somewhere else on the map. Don't ride your own ride. Pass all the checkpoints. There'll be checkpoints on the way. It's normally a kind person giving up their day, sitting in a car. Give them a yell your bib number so they can check you off, and you have to go through all of the checkpoints so they can account for you, and so they know you've not cut the route short. As I said, road crossings, gates, usually manned by lovely people giving up their day. How fast do I go? I hear you ask. Pleasure riders, about 8 kilometres an hour. That's a sort of leisurely trot, bit of a bimbly trot, bit of a walk now and again, maybe a canter up a nice grassy hill. 8 kilometres an hour. Pleasure riders, if they're on a day where there's competitive rides, sorry, this gets really confusing, about 10 kilometres an hour. And at novice level, so beginner's competitive level, about 10. I aim for about 13, which is pretty much trot and canter most of the way, apart from my stop at the crew point. So we're giving it some beans for about 3 hours. That's how fast you should go. When you get really good at map reading, you'll know where you should be on the map by a certain point in time, given a certain speed. That gets clever. So then you start thinking, shit, I need to be at checkpoint 1 by 90 minutes riding, and I'm 10 minutes off. So you know that your speed is slower than you want it to be. Anyway, it's confusing. You see why it gets addictive. After the ride, cross the finish line. Oh, sorry, we have crew points on the way. Time for a drink for your horse, a slosh with your comfort bottle, and make sure you also rehydrate yourself and energize yourself. Maybe a Mars bar, whatever it is, your boost of choice. When you finish, cross the finish line. Some people don't. Don't know why, but they don't. They just go back to the trailer. Oh, is there a finish line? Yes, it is a competition. And you'll be given a finish time or a slip of paper that tells you what time you finished. That's really important because you've got to present to the vet within 30 minutes. If you're doing a pleasure ride, you'll still need to go to the vet for a soundness trot up, and then you go and collect your rosette, have a burger, lie down, pack up your stuff, and feel really quite chuffed with yourself. And don't forget to get your Endurance 7 card ride signed by the secretary. Talk about that in a minute. Competitive rides gets a bit harder. So you've still got to do a vet check, but they'll do a metabolic test, a pinch test, maybe a gum refill test. They'll look in their eyes, they'll check the back, check the legs, and then they'll do over a full minute, which sounds like an eternity. Feels just deathly looking at the vet's stopwatch for a full minute heart rate, which has to be below 64 for you to pass. And in that 30 minutes, knowing how to manage your horse is absolutely, it's the key to the game, really. So it takes into consideration how much pre-ride prep and fitness you've done. The fitter your horse is, the quicker its heart rate will come down. Same with people. Get lots of water on, so cooling them and their big muscle groups in particular helps to reduce their heart rate. Same with racehorses, you see it on track, don't you? And in the recovery areas, the washdown areas, lots of water being thrown about and loads to drink. Give them that buffet bar. A tip with chucking water on hot horses is don't immediately scrape it off again. You want the water to reach the horse's skin and then a bit of a breeze to blow over the top to cool them. That's a good, efficient cooling process. Chucking water on a hot horse and scraping it off with a scraper just makes warm water. Doesn't really do anything for the horse. And also, don't overwater if it's cold because they'll get a chill, just like we would. If you're hot and then somebody threw a bucket of cold water on you on a freezing cold day, you won't be very happy. Know where your horse likes to be cooled. I've got a mare that will kick you into next week if you thought of putting any water on a bum. Rehydrate them, again with lots of fluids. I've got my eye on the time now. Do they need a rug on? Is it a cooling rug that they need, or is it a nice warm rug because it's a cold day? Do they want to be walked? Do you want to let them graze? For some horses, that increases their heart rate. probably don't give them any hard feed because their heart rate will increase to metabolize that. So feed them after you've done all this caboodle. Some horses have a wee and that makes them feel better. Heart rate comes down. I know mine goes up if I'm busting. It's horrible. Some like a roll, let them do it. Whatever they need to chill out and recover from however long you've just ridden them for. That's the trick. And then the tricky bit, excuse me, is this thing with endurance is you get points at each ride or grades. And they're determined by the distance you've ridden, the speed you've ridden at, and the heart rate of the horse when it's presented to the vet. And it's put in a fancy formula. And there's a different formula for novice horses and open horses and different levels of this, that, and the other. You get a grade at the end when you get your MasterCard back, and that gives you a certain amount of points. And then when you get addicted to it and you travel around the country, what you're doing really, it's a bit like a Formula One calendar, is trying to go to each event and get more points. Then at the end of the year, you get more prizes. So that's what it's all about, Rosette. After the ride, then chill out, eat, pack up, chat, collect your Rosette and your MasterCard. If you're a pleasure rider, please take your Endurance 7 MasterCard at that point and get it signed. All the results then get sent off to the Endurance GB office. And oh, there's a typo there. There's usually a photographer at the event as well. So when you get home, don't forget to look up your photos. RoR Endurance, I'm really mindful of the time now. We've got a series to a pathway to get you involved and participating. All the way from pleasure rides, and again, no pressure to do anything more than just go for a nice hack. We have an annual novice horse award. So endurance horses are novice or open, same as more advanced, but same as other disciplines. There's like a progression process. So we give a prize to the novice with the most points at the end of the year. There's a team competition. If you're interested in that, being part of that, email me separately and I'll give you my email address in a minute. We have a brilliant event. We call it the Red Dragon Ride, and it's down in the Black Hills in Builth Wells. We live at the Welsh Showground for 3 days. And there's special awards there, special classes for ROR horses at different distances. Endurance 7 is a genius idea of Anne, who's on the call this evening. So we reward you for completing distances as part of endurance rides or bridleways rides, or we are now including your Ridley distances. So at different points of distance accumulated over as many years as you want to take, we'll send you vouchers for ROR branded merchandise, and the table's there. So take your card, which you can download off the website, get it signed, send it to me, and I'll send you a rosette or a voucher. Easy peasy. Then when you get a bit fancy and you get a bit addicted, we have the Boston Bay Cup for thoroughbreds that haven't raced. There's the EGB Endurance Award for, sorry, that's the wrong way around. No, it's not. The EGB, Endurance GB, have an awards night where they recognise the best ROR. Oh, is this making sense? And then ROR have an awards night where they recognise the elite endurance performance along with the other disciplines like dressage, show jumping, etc., etc. And if that's not enough, your Endurance GB local group has an awards night for all of its members in its area. And look at my hall there. That's from Cheshire Group this year. And that thoroughbred at the back, that trophy, has had my name on it for about 15 years. There are other RORs in our group, I have to say, because I keep dragging them in. But, rosettes, lots of opportunities for rosettes. Here's just some examples of former racehorses just loving going endurancing. And we've got their examples from Amanda, who was an elite endurance series winner, but also last year competed in Ireland for England and won her 60-kilometre class on more salutes. Just some other examples there. And we've recently learned about this lovely young rider called Millie on solo saxophone, who's son of Frankel. That horse won over 100k whilst racing, and there she is doing her first 42-kilometre graded endurance ride. Bless her. I'm not going to play that. I'm running out of time. Sophie Spiteri, if any of you have heard of her or know her, I was delighted. Did her first 22-kilometre endurance competition with a friend the other week. And she's done a brilliant post on Facebook. So there's the link. You can have a look at Sophie's day out. Her one of her horses lost a shoe on course, which thoroughbreds are pretty good at. And the vet came out and no. The farrier came out and put the wheel back on. I'm a bit famous for riding over the finish line with a shoe in my hand, shouting, "Where's the farrier?" Because you've only got 30 minutes to get to the vet, which you can do with all 4 shoes on, as long as you can find the farrier and he's not asleep, or she. Anyway, so I've planned this webinar clearly to last an hour, forgetting about questions. So that's me done. That's where to find out more. I'm talking really quickly. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Don't rush. We've got it goes on to 8:30 at least.
Oh, does it? Oh,
yeah, you've timed it perfectly. We've got half the questions.
I could have spoken slowly. There you go.
No, absolutely brilliant. Should we start going through some? If I read them out, and then you can answer. We've had a couple of questions. The two that I've seen on about hoof boots. So both Catherine and I think Laurie have both. So Catherine's question is, how well do hoof boots work on longer rides and through things like mud and water? And on the same note, Laurie has written, I ride all of mine in hoof boots and would like to keep the new RoR barefoot. Do people manage to compete okay in hoof boots? Any recommendations? I use scoot boots.
Scoot boots are good. Oh, can you hear me? That sounds funny.
Yeah,
can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Oh, that's good. Sorry, just getting funny.
So for those of you who don't know, you wear hoof boots if you have a barefoot horse. You don't normally wear hoof boots over a shod foot. And actually, all horses do really well if you can get them to adapt to being barefoot. That's brilliant. My personal experience is that all of my horses' feet have been so shit, I would never be able to have them with no shoes on. Most of mine are own remedial shoes with big heels and pads. So if you've got a former racehorse that's barefoot, then power to you, because I've not managed it. So if you are going to do endurance, you probably need to use a hoof boot. A lot of Arabs are barefoot and wear hoof boots on the rides, which are going to be stonier or a bit harder on their feet. So when you've done it for a while, you get used to which rides are more grassy and more forgiving to their feet. And they ride barefoot without a boot, which reduces the risk, of course, of them coming off in mud or causing rubs, which can quite often happen. So over longer distances, absolutely fine. Lots of Arabs do 160k with boots on. Thoroughbreds, I have seen kind of the boots don't tend to fit as well because they've got that flatter that flatter profile of hoof. So if you can get boots to fit, brilliant, wear them. And you can trot up for the vet wearing boots on feet, not boots on legs. So they're really good. They're really good over a long distance. They're really good in mud. They do fall off, but so do shoes. Scoot boots are great, and there are lots of other different types which have different fastenings. So I think a lot of people's preference is based on how easy they are to get on and off rather than fit. Make sure they don't rub. Always try them before you go out on an endurance ride. I never go endurance riding in any new kit in case it rubs. So try it first, give it a go. And I take my hat off to you if you've got barefoot thoroughbreds. Brilliant. What's the answer? I can't do it.
Hopefully that answers that question for both Catherine and Laurie. Petra has asked, how many miles do you train per week to get them endurance fit? That's what's always scared me off to look at endurance.
Okay, so let's start at the end of a season. So the season finishes the end of October. Mine will have probably 4 to 6 weeks off where I just let him chill his beans. And it's usually actually, and then I will do bridleways rides with him after that, sort of over the winter period. So I'm out, I don't know, once every couple of weeks, doing about 10 miles just to keep his general fitness ticking over. And then about February, I start to do rides with mates. We go out training, sort of training rides. We might do a farm ride. We might do go to a friend in Wales and go and find some hills. I live in Cheshire, so there's only one hill in Cheshire. So we'll go out maybe for about an hour and a half. Increase that either with more hill work or with more trot work. So we start sort of walking lazily, chatting, what did you get for Christmas? What's gone in the charity shop? All that sort of stuff. And then we start to increase our speeds, but really never ride for more than 2 hours. And then you do that once a fortnight. Schooling in between, flat work in between, groundwork and all of that. So it's probably what you're normally doing anyway. And then the season starts in March. So by then, your horse is generally fit. I would always start with a 32-kilometre ride as a competition, or you would at that point enter a pleasure ride and see how he goes. And then once you've started your season, the rides themselves keep your horses fit as long as you don't break them, as long as they don't fail the vet because they've pulled something or a stone bruise or whatever it is. So mine, I've got sort of my major competition horse, if you like. He now is just doing endurance rides and chilling his beans in between. The dressage and the schooling comes in the winter. And I've got another horse. I've got two. So I hope that helps to answer the question. It's not really that onerous. It's just a good, solid foundation of fitness that by then doing endurance keeps them fit. And again, my tip is get to know what their heart rate is, even if you do a round of show jumps, just out of interest, check it afterwards and then check it after a half an hour, see how fit they are.
You, after yours has had a bit of a holiday, do you have a bit of a program you follow yourself, how to get them back into fitness and things like that?
I do, but it's really boring. So it'll be, I don't know, twice a week in the school, maybe long reining over raised poles, hack at the weekend, start with an hour in the forest. It's not as sort of mega demanding as you would think. It's probably what you do anyway, and then you just build it up towards March. I don't have a specific sort of written down program.
No, but I think that gives
I just
people
know
confidence that everybody can do it.
doable.
Yeah, that's
It really is.
it is really doable for.
And if you start with a pleasure ride, I'm sure most of you go for a 90-minute hack sometimes. Just an amble around. Pleasure ride is, amble, but don't stop at the pub. Has been known.
I can imagine.
And getting lost as well, of course, can considerably add the time. So that's why there's both minimum and maximum
Times.
Mm.
But hopefully that answered your question, Petra. Julie has asked, you mentioned about the ducking down for branches. I have this problem. He just gets faster and faster. What do you suggest?
Lie down and shut your eyes. So it's hard, and it's where the retraining comes, I guess. And it sounds mad, but practice that as well in the school. So just
Into a
imagine,
safe environment.
yeah, you're lying down over its back, and you've got a low branch or a series of low branches, and just see how they go. And what I do is sort of curl up, but I'm still, see my hands here, still taking a tug, half halting. I might be quite head low, but I'm still in contact, legs and hands, just going whoa, whoa, whoa. And over time, they get used to that. And then eventually they go, oh, she's bloody lying down on my back again. There must be a tree up there somewhere. The hardest thing is when it's an overgrown bridleway, which you don't tend to find on endurance rides. I do bridleways rides as well to keep them open. So you keep using them to keep them open. And if they are not maintained, that's when you get this sort of that feeling when it goes on for a long time. And that, to be honest, is where the former racehorse thinks you're crouching down, you want me to gallop. An occasional low branch, you just need someone in front to shout, branch. That's my cue to play Indian and lie on the horse's neck. Sorry, I'm being flippant. It is a serious problem. Just practice. Practice where it's safe.
Practice and
And just
desensitization.
Yeah, just gentle half halts and keep in contact. Don't just suddenly disappear so they don't know where you are.
Thank you very much. Sarah has written, hasn't the membership system changed now? It's now tier 1 to 3. I'm tier 1, but if you're only doing novice foundation, then you don't get a MasterCard. I have no idea. So this is just
you're getting all fancy now. So what I described, I was trying to keep it simple. The pay as you go is what we call tier 3. And then the next one up, the basic, that's tier 2. And that means you can do rides up to 32 kilometers actually, which is one of our class distances. And you can do that as a novice. So both horse and rider get a designation. If you've just started with endurance, you'd be called a novice rider, and your horse, if it's just started, can be a novice horse. And then there's ways of progressing up that scale from novice, open, advanced. I'm not going to complicate it by explaining that to you because you would all start new as novice, apart from the lady that's just asked a question who's already at tier 1. So that's super. So you could get, for example, me, I'm an open rider riding a new horse who's a novice this year. You know, it all switches about. That new structure means it's much more simple. Just think of it, you don't worry yourselves about what tier you're in. You're either doing pay as you go, basic up to 32 kilometers, or you're a full member, you've got all the benefits, you've insured, you can ride any distance, blah, blah.
Thank you. Sarah's also written, I've been told rolling increases heart rate. Mine did I'm just going to say the letters because I don't have that much knowledge. So it's NFGER.
Novice Foundation Graded Endurance Ride. So that's starting off competing at novice level 1. That's great.
This is why you're on the call.
I know, I don't know why they do this. It's so bloody complicated. They could make it so much easier. Honestly.
On Saturday, and I checked his heart rate and it was below 44. He then rolled 3 times. I think he was protesting at the lack of grass available.
Oh.
When we presented for the vetting, he measured at a heart rate of 46. Several people since have said that rolling may have increased his heart rate.
It can, yeah, it can. Especially if you present to the vet straight after they've rolled. So this is why I love it, but other people find it complicated because you get to know your horse. So if you know your horse when it's sweaty or when it's covered in water likes a roll, let it do that, but let it do it like after 10 minutes, not after 25 minutes. So it's got time to recover from the roll as well. Some horses roll and their heart rate comes down. So it's all about knowing your horse. Yeah, exactly. If your horse produces serotonin and adrenaline when it rolls, then don't let it do it just before you go to the vet. But you know what? 44 is a brilliant heart rate, and 46 is also a brilliant heart rate. So the fact that your horse has rolled, it was hot on Saturday. I don't know where you were. I was at the Cheshire Frolic. It was really hot. If your horse has done an endurance ride and rolled, and is feeling grumpy, he's saying he's protesting because there's no grass, and his heart rate's only 46, then you're on. You've got a
Fantastic.
good one. You've got a good one. Don't worry about 2 beats per minute. I mean, that's a fart, isn't it? 2 beats.
Sarah was at the coloured cob ride.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, nice. Good. Superb.
The next question is Laurie again. She also would like to know any advice about riding with my daughter who's 9. So I take sort of on the pleasure rides and sort of getting into endurance.
Brilliant. I think we need more and more young and junior riders. There's 2 different categories of young rider, which I haven't got kids, so I'm not sure where the break points are, but I think 9 is young, and then they go up to junior rider, which is like their teens. The more of those young people we can get interested, then the laster our sport, the longer our sport will last, because we're all old farts and we're dying and falling off horses. So please encourage youngies to start doing it. I would say do shorter rides till you know about their own fitness and how they're going to cope. I think they have to be escorted under 16. Sorry, I'm making the rules up as I go along here, but there's a certain age under which obviously young riders can't ride on their own. Just imagine you're out for a hack. Get them into map reading. Where are you on the map? Do you know where we're going? You know, what time did we set off? Can you work out how fast we're going? It's a mounted maths lesson and a navigation session. Make it fun. That young man that I occasionally escort, in fact, I escorted him a couple of weeks ago on another 40-kilometre ride, is autistic. And we look for arrows on the ground because you have to, and we look for dinosaurs in the woods and sharks in the sea. And what were we doing the other day? He smelt something burning in a field and he said he thought it was a barbecue. I said, brilliant. What's on the barbecue? He said steak. I thought he said snake. So we spent 20 minutes talking about snake burgers, snake sandwiches, snake and oh, you can imagine, can't you? So just make it fun. 9's fine. Get them addicted early, and then they'll be beating you. And that's the joy of, sorry, I'm going to waffle on now. The joy about it is, though, isn't it? You can ride together, but you're competing against, you know, your own result from last time. And if your daughter's horse is beating you and your horse, that's magic. You can have a great day out together and then have a squabble about who gets the biggest rosette.
Laurie's just written, thanks. It appeals. It's the only sport we can do together rather than me sitting on the side watching. So definitely. I have a question. So, like, and again, don't know if this is a bit of a myth because you see videos on TikTok and things like that. So, do you always corral in when you go to sort of endurance, or
well, if my rule is if the ride is more than 2.5 hours away, I will corral.
Yeah.
So I travel. My horses all travel well up to about 2.5 hours, and that's my limit because that means I've got to get up at shit o'clock. That's horrible. Because my vet time might be at 8:30, 9 o'clock. So if it's a long journey, yes, we go the night before. We don't travel, ride, and then stay. You would travel, stay overnight, and ride the next morning, and then probably travel home the same day as you've ridden. And that's when, yes, you all corral, which is a fenced off area, electric fence tape, about the size of about 20 by 20 meters, so probably 2 stables worth of space. And the horses all go together with distance between each corral. And I absolutely bricked it the first time I took my thoroughbred Precious. Never been, you know, never slept out under the stars. Crikey, what's going to happen here? They love it. It's like they're out camping with their mates. They're all whinnying to each other. Hey up, how are you? How far are you going tomorrow? Is your rider all right? Is she getting pissed? All of that. They have a chat. And they're fine. So you give them obviously water, big lump of haylage, they munch away. You sleep in your lorry or your trailer. You can't sleep because all the electric fences are going beep, beep, beep all night. or you get used to that noise and it's part of the fun of being away with your horse. So yes, we corral only if we're doing a multi-day event or if it's a long way away. So your horse is up and ready in the morning and recovered from the trip.
I take it it's not compulsory as well to corral there. People could stable somewhere on the way up, things like
Yeah.
that. So it's not like you have to be there.
Yeah.
Because that's sort of what I was like, sort of like my myth in my head was that everybody's got to corral and be there. And I know it might put people off doing it.
Yeah, it is scary at first. Yeah, I understand why it puts people off. It took me a long time before I was convinced to do it because I was worried about it. I was amazed at how quickly they adapt. It really is only if you're a long way away or multi-day. Most people arrive on the morning of the ride. Well, my horses are good at traveling, but you might want to say, I'm only going to do rides that are less than an hour away. Just put that parameter around it yourself. You don't have to corral. Yeah, there's lots of places. And when we go, for example, to the Red Dragon at Welsh Showground, we have to have a stable. We're not allowed to corral there. So, yeah, you can always find lodgings nearby. Lots of people do. If your horse doesn't like it, practice first. Practice at home. Practice putting the bloody poles up and the fence tape
Keeping it
around. I
straight.
hate that bit. Oh, it's winding it up again when you've finished and you've just done a 3.5 hour ride. And you want to go home.
Yeah,
But
I don't
everybody
envy.
mucks in together. Everybody helps each other. We've all got ways of, zooming around with a tape winder and we're all sorted and we're on the road. It's great. Yeah.
Fantastic. Sarah's just commented again saying my ROR has a second degree heart block. I understand what it is and that it's a potential advantage for heart rate measurement. Pre-ride heart rate was an amazing 30.
Oh,
But are there any issues to watch out for as we compete? We're both loving competing together after having him a year.
oh, that's brilliant news. I'm
Lovely,
really
isn't it?
chuffed. I'm so pleased. I would say if you know your horse has a sort of pre-diagnosed heart anything, check with your vet that knows your horse and its heart condition, and they may say crack on with it, but don't do more than 2.5 hours, or don't ride more than 32 kilometers, or don't ride if it's really hot. So I would take veterinary advice about your particular horse's condition to see where the limit is. As for it being an advantage, mine's got a slight, it's not even an arrhythmia. He occasionally misses a beat, especially if he's tired, which is brilliant for me because the vet can only count the beats that they hear in the minute. So if my horse goes ba-dum, 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 you get the gist. There's your advantage because they can only count what they can hear. But please don't put your horse at risk. I'm so pleased you're loving it. I don't know whether there'll be a limit. I'm not don't want to answer about your particular horse or its condition. I hope you can do 160k in a day and your horse's heart's fine, but just check with your vet.
Do
Take
you
doctor's advice.
do you have to, so like you're saying with your horse with the missing the beat, because you know about it, do you have to declare it to the vets because you've got a vet check prior?
Yeah, on your vet check, on your vet sheet, sorry, when you go for a vet check, you have to declare any injuries. So say it's got mud rash,
Yeah,
you want them to know it was there when you start. So, or
rather
a
than
cut that's
yeah,
healed or healing, you want them to know it's not caused on the ride. Things like an irregular heartbeat, I wouldn't put on that vet sheet. I'd let them find out. And if they don't spot it, if they don't hear it, then more fool them. As long as you're not putting your horse at risk.
yeah,
So any lesions or things like that, I would put on my vet sheet that they're going to see. If they actually hear or feel anything, or when they do a pinch test to see how hydrated they are, that's up to them.
yeah. And is there any sort of medical conditions that do you have like anything sort of that horses are not allowed to compete with endurance if they've been or had treatment for or anything like that?
No, I'm trying to think. Am I saying categorically no? Not that I know of. I don't think so. Something that happens though, which is important, is that if you fail the vet for any reason, if there's any lameness showing for whatever reason, they don't normally like to give a kind of diagnosis on the day. They will say it's not looking right, left hind, check with your vet when you get home, or give it 48 hours. They might even say have a bute, see how it is in a couple of days. If they fail you on any of the metabolics or examination, on your MasterCard, it will say you can't compete for 2 weeks and put the date on. So to answer your question, if your horse has been failed at an event, they can't, in the last 2 weeks, they can't compete again. That would exclude you. I can't think of anything, but if you knew your horse had got a condition that was going to potentially be worsened by doing endurance riding, you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, no, definitely. But that's good to know, like with the 2 week gap, because then it shows how much welfare is such a prominent thing
Totally.
in
And
endurance.
as your distances get higher, so say you to do an 80-kilometer ride, you are not then permitted to compete again 12 days after. So you can't go in another one the next weekend, is what that means.
Yeah.
You've got to allow your horse time to recover, which is why, back to the fitness question, which is why during the summer, my competition horse only does endurance rides or bridleways rides. I don't put extra pressure on his joints and his limbs by schooling and doing all that. He's fit. He doesn't need it. He's obedient. He doesn't need it. We do that in the winter.
Yeah.
Doing the rides keeps him fit. And then the difficulty then is keeping him sound, because the more rides you do, the longer distances and the faster the speeds, the more likely you are to pull or tug or do something which means that they are unfit for, hopefully not long, but you don't want to start doing things which means 6 months off or, oh, no, none of that.
No. Catherine has asked a question: how often do you see other riders? Is there a lot of overtaking during the rides?
Good question. Good question. You don't really see that many because you're all given vet times which are sort of spread out across the class. So the longer distance riders go first, and they may be, if they're doing a really long 160, they may be starting about 6 o'clock in the morning. So they're gone. What you might do, if when you're riding your distances, they might be on a loop. So they may overtake you because they're on their second lap. Do you see what I mean by the time you started? You normally ride in 2s or 3s and you spread out about 5 minutes apart. So you do see other riders. You occasionally see them in the distance and sometimes they catch up. Generally, on the same terrain, you're all going at the same speed, so it should be strung out. It's not like a fun ride, charity ride, where you're all yee-hawing and there's groups of people galloping past. No way. And we are very, very keen on etiquette. So, tail ribbons, really important. So you know if it's a novice or a kicker or a stallion. So you pass with caution. If you're worried then about your horse, stick a green ribbon on its tail. Mine always wears a red one because I'm not being responsible for his back legs. He hasn't kicked anybody ever, but I don't want people to come near enough to me to test that out. So I always just stick a red ribbon on, give people a wide berth. We always shout, is it okay to pass if you want to pass somebody else? They usually say yes. They may say, oh, can you just walk? This is a novice horse. So you do, and you find a space that's wide enough to pass safely and you walk gently past. You might shout, okay, to pass on your right so that people know which side you're going. There's lots and lots of looking after each other and good behaviour on endurance rides. And if there isn't, you get reported to the technical steward who fails you, and then it's like a racing ban. You are not fit to compete for the rest of the season or the next month. We've had reports of bad behaviour and you're out the gang. That help?
Yeah, no, thank you. Petra sort of asked on the same line. How do newbie RORs cope with being overlapped? How have you dealt with sort of when you've first taken them out and things like that?
They're mainly okay. They're mainly okay if you just do as you would normally do, you know, gentle, reassuring pat. It's okay, mate. You're with your friend. I would not recommend starting out on your own unless you really know
Yeah.
your horse is okay. Always be with either another ROR or a buddy or anybody else. I think once the horse has got over the shock that something's beating it, they prefer to stay with their friends.
Yeah.
Mine used to be a right knob if it saw something a long way ahead. And
Yeah.
when you're wearing fluorescent tabards, they seem to spot them.
Miles
And
away.
he would want to catch up. And he was a bit of a dick, to be honest. But over time, he's figured out there's no point in doing that because it's really hard work. And actually, I'm with my mate, so I'll just trot along for a bit. Because
Yeah.
when you first start, and I've got this yet to come with my newbie, when you first start, they set off all exuberant because they think they've got 5 furlongs or 3 miles at the most. When they figure out, and they do, that after half an hour, they've got another 2.5 hours to go. They're much better behaved. In
Yeah.
fact, my youngie is from Fergal O'Brien's, and he knew I was looking for one, and I asked him, and he said, "Got this one. This is what he's done." He's in the British racing school. He's too strong for their students. He knows that I do endurance, and he said he'll be a bugger for the first 5 miles, but he'll be fine for the other 20. So I said, "That's perfect." And he's coming. Not saying it's perfect. Yeah, a racehorse is bred that something tries to overtake it, it'll challenge it. It's in their nature, isn't it? I can't say it won't happen.
But it's knowing
So,
your horse, isn't it?
mhm.
Yeah.
And they do get used to it. They do. Yeah. And do you know, at the end of the day, endurance might not be for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's
Some,
finding what they want to do as well as
yeah,
what we want to do.
yeah. Endurance it might just freak them out too much. And you say, actually, I'm going to stay in the school with mine. That's fine. There's no rules.
Oh, fantastic. Has anybody got any more questions before we say goodnight? Get a couple of minutes. So thank you ever so much, Anna.
Please do watch Sophie Spiteri's Facebook post. I was just chuffed to see her there, and then chuffed because in my mind she's a brilliant retrainer of racehorses, and they do eventing and they do show jumping, and she produces dressage horses. And I saw her at this ride, and she shouted at me because I got my ROR saddlecloth, of course, on, and I was just like made up. She's doing it, and she loved it. She loved it.
She'll have
Even if she never does another one, the video is great.
yeah,
Just
no,
look at
she
the
is.
video. Look at the video. Yeah.
So I will send out an email, hopefully with the playback link when I can find it. And Anna's going to send me the slides and links to the videos and things like that, which will get sent out. There's also, I'll send out some information about crewing workshop for it's probably people in Northern and Midlands area,
I know what
Northern
you mean
Racing
now.
College.
Mhm.
Anne very kindly has sent me all of the info about that. So for anybody that's interested in that, I will send that as an attachment on the email as well. So I just want to say a huge thank you to Anna. Huge thank you to everybody that Petra has just said. Thank you. Now that's a perfect excuse to get a second ROR to have a buddy to start endurance.
Yes.
I think it's perfect reason, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I need 3, don't I? Yes. Absolutely.
I'm not pressurizing anybody to get in more RORs, but it would be lovely if you do. But thank
It
you
will.
all very much for joining us, and I will start stopping the recording now, and then everybody will be leaving. Thank you ever so much.
Love to your dog in the background.